Yeah, and then I'll join you.
We are live, and Lupe's going to go grab her notes real quick. She is in the office for the first time in 3.5 months, and we're actually going to see each other later for the first time in 3.5 months. Hello, Angela Wilson. Thank you, and welcome back, my dear. All right, it's today's morning cup, and we are so excited to have Michael Bevis, who is the who oversees innovation and entrepreneurship for the city and county of Denver. And if you're not familiar with our show, which I know Angela is, I love that so many of you are starting to pop on. Brenda Mercer is coming in. We're a show. Good morning, Brenda. We're a show where we're talking all things 40 and 50 plus. We're talking hot topics, trends, real life. Today we're going to chat. We're going to touch on Black Lives Matter. And we're talking trends, even if it's fashion, like we covered last week. All things about, hello, Miss Bonnie Nash, my fellow Colorado Springser. So this is the Morning Cup. This is episode 6. So exciting because, wow.
Right? It's like number 6. Like it's flown by that fast.
Yes. And it's one of those where, as most people know, we started this on a whim. We wanted to do this as a YouTube channel, and we're waiting to put plans together. And, because I'm the planner. And Lupe and I said, let's just pull the trigger and do it. I mean, what better time, right, than to work on a new project or do something that's out of the box for yourself. So today we're going to cover hot topics. This is very important to myself and, of course, Lupe. As minorities in the country today, we're going to talk about 5 ways to stand up against racism and injustice. Very simple ways to stand up, demonstrate this to your kids and your coworkers, family members. It's going to be very easy for you, so that those of you that are asking us, what can you do? We've got a few answers that we actually found from UNICEF. So trending, we're talking about retail stores closing. So we all like to shop from now and then, right? We've missed going to the mall, Lupe.
Yeah, I miss it. It's so crazy. My kids are like, let's go to the mall. And I'm like, oh, back in the day when we used to be able to go to the mall. Like I'm having some serious retail withdrawal. So I'm
Yes. And so, although we're going to talk about retail stores closing, the reason why we're bringing it up is because women specifically are going to be harmed mostly by the closing of retail stores. But on the flip side, because Lupe and I always like to talk about the positive side of things, like to balance it out, this is the time to launch your company, create something new, maybe taking that hobby from a hobby to passive income or a full-blown income. So we're going to be talking about that. And Michael Bevis with the City and County of Denver, lastly, again, we'll be talking to you about all the things they offer. We are big fans of Michael from day one when we met him. And he is not just entrepreneurs as a whole, but also women and minority-owned women combined, and the businesses that we are trying to craft, launch, and create and swivel to.
He's been an amazing resource. And what I love about him is that he is so accessible and so willing to help and brings just a wealth of knowledge. So we are super excited, ladies, to have you learn from him, connect with him, and hopefully, at some point in time, be able to meet with him, whether it's virtually or in person, to see how the city might be able to support you, because he's a wealth of knowledge.
Absolutely. And the thing is, if you are outside of Colorado, which we know many of you are now, and welcome to SecondActWomen. We are on a national mission, if not global. We welcome you, and I'm sure he has some tips for you as well as to how to reach out to your local city governments. So without further ado, we're going to jump into our hot topics, trending stories, and hacks. Very quickly, I want to thank, and I know Lupe does too, for those of you who have supported us as minority women throughout the last few weeks, the horrific crime that has taken place and the horrific crimes that have taken place all across the country. Now, one of the things that I want to tell you, I am not against the police. I never will be. I believe in what they do, and I believe that there are many, mostly good peace officers out there. Sadly, it's those that are the bad ones. It's that bad apple that are unleashing their ignorance on my community. And now's the time to stand up and listen to us. Don't necessarily ask us what you can do, because the answer is simple. Google it. Go to your library. Talk to, look up the NAACP or even UNICEF or any organization. They have active tips that you yourself can research and look into and activate yourself. I say this because many of us don't feel it's our position to educate any longer. We didn't bring racism on, and we are here to say, please do your homework, support us, listen to us. And you ladies, we can't say enough how much we appreciate you. The back messages that we've been getting from you, our friends outside of here and other places, we heart you and thank you. You are a minority as well. No matter what shade you are a minority simply by being a woman. So you should understand a little bit about what we are going through at this time. But this too shall pass, and we just need to work together. What do you think, Lupe? And I'm going to give these tips.
Girl, you know what? I mean, that comes from the heart for both of us. And as women of color, like you mentioned, I completely stand and agree with you. These past few weeks have been heavy, and I'm sure I don't speak for just me. It's been for all of us. But I think what's been interesting for me is that it's inspired me to be even a better version of myself, to even go out and be a better human, to understand that we all have that potential within us. And, and I love the idea of you going and getting smart, because I think it's this idea of like, if you want to do something, then you go out and initiate it. Like, take charge of what you want to do and show up. Don't expect others to show you when I think it starts with you wanting to get smart on it first. And I think that shows commitment, that shows interest. And then should you want to have conversations after what you've read or what you found, that's awesome. I love the idea of having open conversations with colleagues or friends, because the more that you participate in open dialogue, I think the bigger your opportunity and those rose-colored glasses come off, or those biases hopefully change. But what happens is you have to come up with a conversation with a perspective, an educated idea of what you're talking about. Don't go simply soliciting, but go to be able to have a constructive conversation. And I think that's
constructive, yes, because I appreciate the dialogue, the open dialogue. I've had many. I had a friend who came over last week. We social distanced, and we sat on my patio and had deep conversations. Hell, she knew of some of the more activists than I did, and she is a beautiful redhead with fair skin. So she is doing her homework, and she educated me in some of the other areas of of this topic. So I agree. Just do your homework, but also know I'm not saying we're not here to listen, or I'm sorry that we're not here to have the conversation, because we are. We just want you to come with a little bit of knowledge to the conversation. That's all. So here are 5 tips. And I'm going to keep these simple. It's listen. We've already said this first one. Listen to and amplify Black voices. Now, because I have my Latino work wife / sister, I will say, listen to us all. Just because it's happened and it's shown in my community, it's shown in other communities. It's shown through ageism with the 75-year-old man that was shot. So listen to our Black voices. Pay attention to the voices of people who have experienced racism every day. When I walk out my door, I know my color. So keep that in mind. Call out, pardon, sorry, 4-pounder. Call out bigotry and hate speech. I don't even have to explain that one. Just call it out in a very peaceful way. We're here about being good to people, right, Lupe? It's calling it out and making sure the person knows, whoever it is, that they're wrong. And here are the reasons why. And you can actually, if you educate yourself, you can actually list some of the reasons why. Right?
Yeah, I mean, and I think so here's the gift that you can give yourself and you can give others. The idea that you do not know everything. You are not always right. So to be humble enough, to be human enough to say, I was wrong. Am I wrong? Is the most beautiful grace and act of humanity and just love that you can give yourself and you can give others. So it's not to say that we're all perfect and that you should strive to know everything. No, that's not what we're saying. But what we're saying is be genuine in your retrospect and your ability to kind of look back, analyze what you've done, and take positive change to move that conversation forward. Move perhaps beyond those initial kind of ideas that you thought, and challenge yourself to grow, to learn, and to be open-minded. I think that's the real in some of these conversations too.
Yes. Third, so simple, and all of these are common sense, but I feel like they need to be reminded. Lupe and I both do. It's teach your children about kindness, fairness, and human rights. They're not born racist. If you've seen that beautiful video of those two kids that rush to hug each other, and guess what? They happen to be different shades. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's innate for us to love and be kind and human. Yeah. It's only when we're taught differently, right? I mean, so just teach your kids. Prejudice and hate are not innate, as I said. So it's that simple. And I say this because there are some of you, hello, that have had babies later in life. So we're telling you that this is true. Stand up. Number 4, stand up for people being harassed in a very peaceful way. If you see something, say something. It's just that simple. Just that simple.
You know what? And I just jump in on that one because I think, a lot of people are asking, so what can I do? You don't have to go protest. You don't have to, do something so huge. But in that moment, it's little things that you can have within even your own bubble, your own community that have those ripple effects that can have tremendous, effects beyond even just that one kind of like, hey, you know what? I don't think that was the best comment. And here's why. And understand that it doesn't have to be a confrontation if that makes you uncomfortable. Understand that, hey, if your heart is in the right place and it's all about educating, then you are approaching it with the right perspective. But it's the idea of like, by being silent about something, even though you know that it's wrong, then you are complicit. And I know that at the heart, we don't want to be that.
Yes, and I will give an example. The first time I experienced racism was not until my senior year in high school. I was working at, all of us can remember, Bonnie, you'll remember, Foxmore Casuals at the Citadel Mall. And someone came in to return something, and I'll never forget that what this person said to me immediately after I was following the rules. And I said, oh, you have to have a receipt, blah, 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 blah. This was in the 80s. And guess what happens? The guy goes off on me, calls me the N-word. I can't even tell you how hurtful and how stunned and how shocked and how embarrassing and humiliating that experience was. But you know what happened? My manager, who was Caucasian, so white, stepped in and said, you, sir, can leave the store. Immediately stepped in and said, that will not be tolerated in the 80s. I'll never forget that. And so it takes people like that when it's safe to do it. Let's stick up for one another. We are one humankind.
I mean, and how beautiful to see even like, what was that? You said it was in the 80s? So 20 some odd years, that specific incident, that the courage that took to defend you and stand up for you, and just not just defend you, but remember it, right, has impacted you 20 some odd years later. So again, of like, you do not know your own power until you actually choose to step into it, do something that feels right to you, because look how it affected you 20 some odd years later. So that's what I'm talking about. Like, don't be afraid to own into your own power, because these are the that can result from an ugly moment, but we can change the trajectory of how that affects you moving forward.
Yes, I absolutely. I'll never forget that. And she was a beautiful human being. So number 5 is so simple. Support your local, regional, or national or global human rights organizations, whether they're saving lives from being trafficked to, and that would be Katie Hilborn with Global Orphan Prevention, to UNICEF, to there's a variety of organizations out there that you, again, can Google. Everything is found out. 100% of the things in the world can be found on Google, as Mary Smith said. Google an organization that you feel drawn to and do it. Support human rights issues if you're called to do it. All right. So we just wanted to bring this up. We might be dabbing into this a little later. I want to give props to my business partner, because I will tell you, I did not want to tackle this subject. I thought I'd put my foot in my mouth, because I often do. And we wanted to talk about this last week. She did. And also at that time, I was burned out. I was just so hurt and tired, because time and time again, this has happened. But I'm so thankful to my business partner. And it took me, a few days to come around and say, no, you're right. We need to talk about this. So I'm a lot more calmer in my feelings. And I just appreciate all you beautiful human beings out there. May DNF. Oh my Lord, I remember May DNF. So let's hop into something a little lighter. We want to thank you, ladies, again for being here. We forgot to do our toast. Lupe is in the office today. So yeah. So she had to get started.
And sadly, I rushed into another office and I left my cup and locked the door behind me.
Oh, that's so funny. And I this is my mug. It was given to me by a teacher friend of mine. I love it. It's one of my
beautiful.
Right? Thank you, Corey Chubb. She's a teacher librarian at the Jefferson County. All right, so pretty retailers, Lupe, let's get into this and then talk to Mr. Bevis about,
Well, so ladies, so obviously our whole goal with this morning cup is always to kind of scour the internet and come to you with some tidbits, some news, maybe perhaps you haven't crossed paths with. So what we found for this time around is that, as we were talking about retail, and we came off last week talking about fashion, we found that retailers are closing while women, get for this, are starting up, which is actually kind of a bad thing, but good thing in the same one. So a little bit of a paradox. Nonetheless, here's some news about kind of what's going on in the retail world. So we found out that JCPenney's is going to start to liquidate sales in June. So if you are looking for some deals, you might want to consider hitting the nearest JCPenney to you before they kind of close down completely. Pier 1, sadly, I'm sad to say, because I love Pier 1. I've got so many things in my house from Pier 1. I love shopping that place. Has plans to wind down and potentially even start to liquidate too, as does Tuesday Morning. I don't know how many of you have heard. I used to have one right up the street from me, but they are now filing voluntary petitions for Chapter 11. So those are just a sampling of some of big brands, national, global brands that are being affected by kind of what's going on. And sadly, as a result of the fact that these major chains are shutting down and liquidating, women are being affected in droves. The reality is that the retail industry is primarily made up of women. And so as these companies start to shut down, women are losing jobs, and sadly at an insane rate. According to the Women's Policy Research, using Bureau of Labor Statistics employment data, they found that approximately 1.3 million jobs in the retail sector are going to be lost by women. So women will be disemployed 1.3 million. I mean, that's an insane number compared to their male counterparts who lost 836,000 jobs as well too. I mean, combined, that is a huge hit. But the silver lining, because we always try to find a silver lining for you guys, is the fact that women are starting up. They are taking these these signs of unemployment or maybe voluntary loss or furloughs as opportunities to jumpstart their own company. As previously in what kind of we went through the financial crisis back in 2008 to 2010, a cohort of amazing companies sprouted during that time. So even in times of adversity, there are new breeds of companies popping up. There are women saying, no, you know what, I got this. Maybe I'm going to turn my side hustle into my main hustle. And so that is the beautiful silver lining that organizations like CNBC, who've talked to different types of experts, are finding that women are starting up. And the fact is that even pre-COVID, women were starting up 1,821 businesses a day, of which 1,220 were done by women over 40 and 50. So we don't know how those statistics will pan out post-COVID, but what we are seeing even within our own community is that women are stepping up and are not going to go down without a fight.
No way. And I was so sad. Yeah. I was so sad to hear that Pier 1 is closing too. I love that place. Especially right out of college and starting my first job. And I think we can all relate, and you're starting to like get stuff for your apartment, you know. That was the place, especially when candles and picture frames were in.
Yeah, whether it's indoors or outdoors, I'm like, it's just
yes. Do you want to know something? Little sidebar. I was director of marketing of downtown Fort Worth, which was a mixed-use entertainment district. I worked for the Bass Brothers. And Pier 1 and Radio Shack both were in the heart of our district in one of the buildings.
Oh my gosh, Radio Shack is a throwback right there.
As a tech geek, I used to love walking into Radio Shack. Now it's Best Buy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, anyway, and that leads into Michael Bevis. We are going to bring on Michael Bevis with the City and County of Denver. Hello.
Hello.
Nice to see you, Mr. Bevis. Where's your mug, Bevis?
I know. Here I have my clear glass and green stuff.
Of course, the guy who climbed, as I just learned, Mount Kilimanjaro is drinking something healthy.
Ooh.
Yeah, wow.
It's not quite healthy. It's my homemade version of Diet Mountain Dew.
Oh, your homemade version.
That's my caffeine intake. I don't drink coffee.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
Mountain Dew was the drink back in college to keep us up, right? So listen, as we talk about women starting up, we're really excited to have you because we've been trying to do our part by taking part in what we can over in your department with Women on the Rise and, going to wonderful events at the Commons on Champa and others. And I know you oversee that. And so, right, before we jump into the questions, I just want to read your bio so that everyone knows. I mean, wow, what have you not done, by the way? So Michael Bevis. Okay, so I love that he's 49.5. Remember we used to say that when we were kids.
I was trying to think if I should do something fun and make you all guess, but I didn't want you to hurt my feelings.
I had no clue. Yeah. So you have an MBA, MS, and a PhD. You're an entrepreneur and business professional who is driven. You are driven to help others and help them succeed and move past the startup phase. Your talent and experiences are really unique. I mean, they encompass business marketing, leadership, personal branding, higher education, and you're quite the overachiever because you are an industrial organizational psychologist with other degrees now in finance and marketing. My goodness, we're going to him with more questions later. We're talking about our company. Wow, he's got great stuff, a great background. On top of that, you manage all things related to entrepreneurship and innovation for the City and County of Denver, and that's a new department in essence for the City of Denver. And you're an entrepreneur as well. You have KoolSkinz, that's KoolSkinz.com, ladies, performance gear for your animals. They just can't be 4 pounds. They have to be over 14.
They have to be over 6 pounds. So
6 pounds. I go 6 pounds. And then, so you're the CEO and co-founder of that. And you also started 3 nonprofits. And you serve as a board member for others. I mean, I even say, like, if that's not enough, you like to spend time hiking and traveling, and you recently summited Mount Kilimanjaro, as I said earlier. You are quite the Renaissance. Holy smokes,
well,
gregarious.
The most impressive part of the Kilimanjaro summit is that I did it with my mother.
You did it with
who at the age of 66 reached the top.
There you go.
Wow.
That you can do anything. There you go.
Yeah.
That's it.
Everything. Holy crap. Well, we welcome you. And I do want to let you know this is broadcast on both our Facebook page, but also to my personal LinkedIn page. So Gregarious is here. I love what he said. He said, look at my smart fancy friends doing LinkedIn Live. Thank you. We're following in your footsteps. So listen, let's get started. Recent research has said, as Lupe said earlier, that 1,220 businesses a day are started by women over 40. And there's no better time, frankly, than today, perhaps, to start a business, even though we're in this new normal, which we really don't like to call it. There's still a chance or a greater opportunity. I mean, there were businesses, Uber, and oh gosh, I had them all written down. There were so many businesses that were started during the last recession that have become multi-million, billion-dollar companies. However, even though that many businesses are started by women, only 3% of funding goes to women-owned businesses. And of that, nearly only 1% goes to minority-owned, double minority-owned businesses. So women of color who own a business. So how can this be changed, do you think? And where can we find funding? What's the deal, Michael, do you think?
Yeah. I mean, your stats hold true, unfortunately, but the fortunate way to look at them is that it's a trend that's shifting, right? And things take time to change. And so when you think about the idea of, in your 40s and 50s, or in your 50s for sure, 10 years ago, it was like you're thinking about retirement, right? And now all of us, when you're in your 50s, you're like, what am I going to do for my next career? That's a beautiful name for your organization here, right? Because we're living longer, we're staying vibrant more longer, we're staying healthy longer and more active. And so there's an opportunity for us to stay active and engaged. And that trend is shifting. And I'm glad to see that there are more women that are thinking about becoming entrepreneurs and starting businesses instead of working for others in that pathway. And so I think it's great. To your point about the funding situation, is that unfortunately it's just a lag, right? And so when you see things like in the economy, as an example, and Lupe mentioned earlier about the recession that we had back in 2007, started in 2007, you first see the impact in residential real estate. Right? Everybody was overloaded in residential real estate. And as we started to lose jobs and things like that, you see a massive dip in residential real estate. Well, it doesn't take but probably 2, 3, 4 years later that you start to see similar dips in commercial real estate, because there's that kind of lagging effect that happens with that. And so I think that we're seeing a little bit of that. So you're seeing now the influx of the exact opposite of a recession or a downturn, right? In these startups, we are seeing this huge influx of startups, especially being led by women, which is great. And it's just taking time for the financing to catch up. The good news is that there's a lot of large corporate entities, as well as private foundations and things of this nature, that have come out and publicly said, we are strategically positioning ourselves to help fund these women startup businesses. And I think we just need to see a little bit of time pass before we really start to see and feel the impact of that. It's still never going to be enough, but it's definitely a good start. when you think about things and resources, like from the city standpoint, one of the things that I do in my role with the city is I help oversee a small business lending program that we offer. So we do some financing, what we call gap financing. And we kind of have internally a mandate that says that a majority of that funding will go specifically to women and minority-led businesses in key strategic areas of the city. So that's our effort, as a city, to not come out and just say, great, every next white guy that wants to open a brewery is going to get some funding. It's not only because we want to make sure that the funds are reaching the right community, but that we're being smart, from a business standpoint, and diversifying our own portfolio as well. Yeah. And so we strategically are making that effort to do that. It's just, it's slow, kind of coming in that way. But there's a lot of things that the city does in an effort to help support women and minority-owned led businesses who want to do business with the city. So as an example, at the Commons on Champa pre-COVID, and we're still holding these sessions, but now they're more in a virtual setting. But once a month, we were hosting sessions there to help people navigate what it means to submit bids for city-led contracts, or you want to bid on projects that are happening out at the airport, as an example. And how do you get involved in that process? And then as a small startup, as an example, or maybe just a couple of employee-led business, and you win that big contract out at the project at the airport, now you need to ramp up staffing and support and all these kinds of things. And the city has resources to help you with that as well. So that's where I see some kind of shifts. Some things that I like. So one of the things that the city puts out that I would encourage all of your listeners and participants on this call to look into is something that we call the capital matrix. So the capital matrix, you can Google it. As you said, there's nothing you can't find on the internet. But if you Google capital matrix City of Denver, it's basically about an 18 to 20 page PDF document that shows all the various funding sources that we know of currently, and we try to update it every year. And that can be anything from traditional bank financing to private investment dollars to equity firms, to other lending sources and things of that nature. Some things to consider, everybody kind of always thinks like, well, you're going to do a startup, you have to go out and pursue equity financing, right? You have to get, equity partners and give up equity in your business to find some financing. And sometimes that's the case because you're not generating revenue and you don't have the means necessarily to start paying back debt or financing. But there are low cost, no cost type of debt financing that exists out there for smaller entities, as an example. So the Colorado lending source in town is what we would call a CDFI, so Community Development Finance Institution. A little more liberal and progressive as far as how they lend and who they lend to than a traditional bank. They partner with an organization called Kiva, Kiva, and they currently have loan programs available that are 0% interest for startup businesses, typically looking for funding $15,000 or less, typically is what you'd see in those programs. So I would encourage people to kind of look for different opportunities there. Another resource that I would refer people to is a website called GUST, G-U-S-T. And this is a site that a lot of the accelerator programs use when you want to apply to participate in an accelerator program. So Rocky Venture Club, as an example, in Denver, is a big angel investment group in Denver. When you apply to pitch at one of their events, it kicks you through the GUST website. The nice thing about the GUST website is, A, it's free, but once you set up your profile on the site, you can actually go out there then and search for entities anywhere in the world that are participating on that platform that are funding particular projects, or women-led businesses, or women-led businesses that are specifically focused on the healthcare sector. And what you can find in there sometimes, and most of it is geared towards equity type of financing or accelerator programs or things like this. But what you can find in there is a lot of like institutional financing. So I'm making this up off the top of my head. Actually, I'm just going to give you a real example because it's worked for me in my business. So as you mentioned, Barbara, I have a startup company myself. We make pet performance wear. I created my profile. I went on there and found out that Mars Corporation which is one of the largest pet product owners in the world. They are hosting a virtual pitch event, and it's free seed money, basically, is what it is if you win, right? And so I go on there and I pitch and I win $10,000 as a prize money type of thing.
Wow.
Because it's specific to pet products, right? In that particular case. So maybe I'm starting up a business in women's oral health, and I realize that Delta Dental is kicking in $50,000 for a pitch competition kind of thing. And you can pick up little bits and pieces of money here and there to help you kind of move your concept forward. But additionally, you kind of get feedback and support on the idea and the concept that you're creating, and whether or not there's some viability to it, and or how you might pivot and partner with other people in that space.
So a question here is that Angela, who's up there in, I think she's in Longmont, and she's had been invited to a scale-up program, so she's a part of a cohort for her new companies that she started. So is this happening? Are these resources available to other people throughout Colorado, or you have to live in Denver proper, or have your LLC registered to Denver? What is it?
So most of the resources I mentioned they're nationwide, right? So the only one that I reference that's specific to the city and county of Denver is the small business lending program that we oversee. And that lending program, the business does have to reside within the city and county of Denver. And that's just because our taxpayer dollars going towards that. And so we want to kind of see that stay within the system there. For your person that's up in Longmont, there's a fantastic resource up there called E for All. So they are kind of what I would call like a pre-accelerator incubator type of program. Tremendous resources up there as far as education, access to funding and different things there. So.
Okay. And Lisa Sharp, we're going to answer your question at the very end, because I'm sure a lot of people, would like to get in touch. The other question that we have is, why did Denver ranks top 15 for one of the best cities to start up? And let's just say someone has a solution and they have a solution for a big problem, and they want to start up. Or someone wants to launch their consulting business because they're ready to swivel and leave. We use that instead of pivot, and leave corporate America. Either way, what are the first steps, and how can the city of Denver assist them? But what are the first steps of starting your company in the first place?
Yeah. So I think that's part of the reason why the city kind of created the position I'm in. So it was created in August of 2018, because as you mentioned, we always like the publications that say we rank in the top 3 or 4. Anyway, the city of Denver has been a hot spot for quite some time now, as far as places to start up businesses, as well as to kind of relocate and or open a second headquarter type of situation. And so the first thing that you would do is I would certainly encourage people to reach out to their local city's economic development team. So, the city of Denver, obviously a bigger city in the state of Colorado, but even in a place like Longmont or Colorado Springs, or even, just outside the city in Inglewood or Edgewater, anywhere, throughout kind of your local kind of community, most of those smaller cities still have somebody who represents economic development within the city of that particular thing, and see what resources that they have. Oftentimes those economic teams partner with local chambers of commerce or other economic development teams that are maybe private entities, and they all kind of collaborate and work together. And what I'm trying to do in my role is to help consolidate all those resources so people kind of have a one-stop shop as far as you start here. So we always say at the Commons on Champa, when you're starting up, you start here, because we have the resources, hopefully, that then we can point you in the right direction, right? And get you started. And so that way you're not kind of just waiting in the endless sea of resources out there and knowing where to navigate. And so Denver, Colorado in general, but Denver and Boulder in particular, have a really strong reputation nationally for being extremely collaborative, for supporting entrepreneurs in general. And so one of the first things, and this is a true story, and this happens to me almost on a weekly basis, I'll work with a company that is starting up or has this grand idea that you talked about, and I will connect them directly to a business who would be considered their direct competitor. And the CEO of that company will say, sure, absolutely, send them over. I'll be happy to talk to them and give them all the tips and tricks and support that I can to help them try to be successful. So that's kind of the mentality and the support that you get here. And that's one of the reasons that makes Denver, such a popular place to come out and start and grow your business. But first steps, how do you get started? Contact your local economic development team. For us, we operate out of the Commons on Champa. Is where you want to come. We use some really cool technology there. So in Denver, we would encourage you to get involved with Startup Space, which is a free app that we use. And it's giving you kind of a roadmap and a network of a variety of resources, to programming, to funding, to online classes, and anything that you can think of. You want to hire somebody, you can find them typically through that Startup Space app.
That's
just
really
one big hub.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Michael, so question 2. So a lot of businesses in our community are what we call micro businesses, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Obviously a distinction between a micro business and a small business. And so some of the feedback that we've gotten from a lot of our micro businesses or even solopreneurs, right, is this idea that the resources aren't structured to support micro business. Like you have to make a certain amount of money, which for a small business is what, like $250,000, and you have to have above 9 employees, I think it is. So how is it that, what resources are you familiar with that are structured to support the solopreneurs or the micro businesses to kind of get them to move into the whole small business? Because these women are struggling to even just keep their, below 9 employee setup in business.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, and I think it's just a matter of, to be quite frank, is to teach yourself to get out of that mindset. That's a roadblock for you. So I am a solopreneur for my own business as a perfect example. We work with solopreneurs at the Commons on Champa all day, every day. And a lot of the resources that I mentioned earlier, like the CDFI groups, so these community development finance institution groups, that's their sweet spot. Right, the 1-2 person startups that are looking for funding to go from take that first little couple of steps there. That's exactly what they do. I think that those traditional kind of benchmarks of you got to make X dollars and you have to have X number of employees and you have to be in business for X number of years. That's kind of traditional bank financing and traditional kind of resources that you would expect. The city as a whole is really geared toward. I mean, we're geared towards helping everybody, obviously, right? I mean, we work with a lot of Fortune 500 companies that are relocating and opening additional locations in Denver and those kinds of things. But we work with businesses all the way from the ideation phase all the way up. And so I'm a firm believer that as a solopreneur, a micro business, you can, if you do it right, you can certainly leverage freelancers and other resources that exist out there that allow you to grow and scale a business for quite some time before you have to start bringing on full-time staff and you have to start looking at some of these traditional resources. So what I love about some of those, the community development finance institutions is they offer a ton of what we call wraparound services, right? So business plan writing, marketing strategies, accounting setup, all of these kinds of things. You can get those resources even if you haven't made a single dime yet in revenue. From these institutions. We offer that, of course, through the Commons on Champa and the work that we do at the city, and we're happy to do that. But if you're going down the path of looking for financing, as an example, and you're working with one of these CDFIs, I've seen them actually provide the resources that says, well, let's sit down and I'll help you write out a financial projection plan. Right? Because that's maybe something that you're not comfortable doing, or it's not something you haven't done before as a first-time entrepreneur. They'll actually help you do that, right? And so there's a ton of resources out there, and I think we just have to all kind of train ourselves to get out of the mentality that nobody wants to help me because I'm not big enough.
Yes.
Right.
I love that. And what kind of programs do you have specifically for women? There's Women on the Rise that some of our women may not be familiar with. We attended a meeting just last week. It was really great by them. And so tell us about some of the programs that are specific to us.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed kind of the big one for us as Women on the Rise. There's a ton of opportunities, obviously, in a city like Denver where it's thriving. I mean, there's women-specific, co-working spaces. There's a variety of, private entities that are doing things specific for women. There's a fantastic group in town called SecondActWomen where she works only with women of color. Tremendous amount of programming, and she is really starting to expand as an example, and she's opening chapters in other cities around the United States and in overseas. Makisha Booth. So brilliant individual, came out of the corporate setting, realized that there's some tools and resources that were missing for her population, and she's doing a tremendous job out there helping that. But there's more and more of that coming up. On my role with the city, I'm working to kind of create programs that will be geared towards, women, minority-led businesses by industry sector, if that's where it's relevant. So when I first got here, I did one for high school students to kind of whet their appetite a little bit earlier. I have a program for the LGBTQ community, and now we want to focus, on where there's their needs. If there's somebody out there that's doing a really good job, like the Women on the Rise group as an example, I don't need to tread in their space. I would rather refer people over to them, right? If they're doing a good thing, I'm not out there to try to duplicate what exists. My role is to fill in the gaps where there are things that don't exist. One of the programs that I run is called Scale Up through the city. So it's a free program, what I refer to as a post-accelerator program. These two lovely ladies are part of the program, but it's a program typically geared for companies that have had some traction and they're moving along, and they're starting to hit some of those roadblocks that keeps them in what we call still startup phase or scale up phase, right? And what we want to get to mid-market, typically for for-profit companies, that's typically north of $10 million. So 10 to 50 million, 500 million is kind of what we would call mid-market for businesses. And the program is designed to help support those businesses and overcome what I say are their three biggest challenges so that they can get to that level. When I came on board, the program had been around for about 2 years and comprised of about 6 companies each in each of those previous cohorts. And we're now my second time running cohorts, and we have 15 in our current cohort, and we had 18 in the previous cohort. The previous cohort, 75% of the businesses in that cohort were women-led businesses. This cohort is a majority of it is women, not quite 75, but we do have a strong representation there. And so I personally love to see that kind of mix and that mingle there, because I think that we all kind of collaborate better when the makeup of the audience is much more diverse.
We couldn't agree more with that across the board. Shout out to Amanda Moriucci too with Appet Ventures, who is also in that cohort, another woman. So we are showing up, ladies, to represent you in these amazing programs. And thank you, Michael, for nominating us to be part of. Super excited about the opportunity.
I'm happy with what you bring to the group.
Thank you. So question. So to kind of wrap it up, so the ladies obviously would love to keep in touch with you. All the resources you've mentioned today have been fantastic. What would be the best way to stay in touch with the department, with your department?
Yeah, I mean, you can contact us directly through our website, which is denvergov.org. I'm happy to provide my personal contact information. You can email me directly at my name, so it's Michael.Bevis, Bevis, at denvergov.org. Or you can call me directly on my cell phone at 619-454-3593. And love to have an initial chat with you and see how I can help. Even if you're outside of Denver, I'd be happy to have that conversation and see what I can do to help get you connected with resources that would be helpful for you.
I love that. And what I can say is you're the real deal, because you immediately, when you meet with people, it's constant and always you are willing to meet with people. That's where I'm going with it. And you love it. You love getting out there and hearing all these different solutions that we're all trying to solve. Problems that we're all trying to solve. And you were so engrossed in this community of Denver. I don't know where the 619 comes from. Where'd you come from?
That's San Diego. That's where I'm from originally. And I'm just too stubborn to give up my cell phone. San Diego.
Oh, Indiana?
San Diego, California.
Oh, San Diego.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, I don't blame you. That's what your family and friends know that number. But it's always been a comfort to know that you're always there to answer any questions we may have. And you're quick with getting back, considering how many people did you say you met with in 2019?
1,200 individual business owners.
Yeah. Which we were on multiple times.
Yes. Yeah, I only counted you once. Yeah.
And I know, right? We were all over Michael. I love that. And we were so thrilled to be a part of that Scale Up program. It's an honor for us. And, just thank you. And thank you today. It looks like all the ladies are just so excited about the information that we've been popping up, all these, these Chiron, all these quotes that people are giving. Kathy Holmes, by the way, if you didn't see that, said, thank you for giving her a shout out from LinkedIn. Yes, we love Kathy. We had the honor of meeting her not long ago when we were able to meet at IRL.
Yeah.
And so we just want to thank you for all that you do. We want to thank the City and County of Denver for even creating this opportunity. Can you, we're a little bit over time, but Denver Startup Week, tell them the applications are happening now, correct? Yep.
So now's the time to get out there and submit your sessions. I think it's going to be a pretty exciting time to see, Denver Startup Week is going to be 100% virtual this year. And it's going to be exciting. And the competition for the sessions is going to be a little tighter because they're probably only going to allow about 200 sessions to run during the virtual event. So I would encourage you to get your sessions out there
only
early.
200?
Yeah. Well, and on average, they do about 380 to 400 sessions every year during the Denver Startup.
Crazy. Yeah. It's awesome.
So, just get on. Again, you can just Google Denver Startup Week, and it'll take you. There's a link right on the front page on how to submit your session.
Okay, one last thing. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, and then towards the end of June, they'll reach back out and ask people to start voting for which sessions they'd like to see.
I know we're going to do it again. I want you to get your cell phone out, and I want you to, and you too. Oh, Lupe, do you have yours with you?
What?
I want you to get. We would love you to have your cell phone out, and just to show you're human after all of this that you do for. I want you to show us the third picture, and we'll do the same. The third picture on your cell phone, and
okay,
if you can.
I can. It's not going to be very exciting, but I can explain the story to you.
Let's see. Hey.
It's a picture of a car bumper with some damage on it. Because a friend of mine, college age daughter, has her car was backed into in a parking lot. And so in my previous life, before I was with the city, I was the dean over at Emily Griffith Technical College, and I ran the auto collision repair program. And so I said, send me some pictures and I'll see if my instructor over there can do something to help you out.
I love it. Well, okay, here's mine. I made my first beef stew ever. And so I took a picture of it and sent it to Mama Brooks, so she knew that I was still trying to cook.
Good.
I don't have my cell phone with me right now because I'm actually in the office working today, and I locked myself out of my main office. I'm in the conference room, so.
Well, we thank you, and thank you, Ira. Ira, we love what you're doing as well. Yes. And Michael, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you and everything
pleasure.
You
Thanks
do.
for the invite, and I hope to hear from some of you on this call.
You are an
awesome
ally. We so appreciate you. Thank you for all you do.
Thanks. Yeah, feel free to put my contact info in the chat if that's helpful.
Will do.
You got it. You got it.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, I love Brenda. Brenda, where's the beef? We all remember that Wendy's commercial.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Right. We are going to follow up with quite a few. We gave out a lot of stats, so we're going to follow up with stats that we gave about Denver being the top 15 for startup. We'll give his information. And even for those of you that are from smaller cities, we Well, also, there is a small cities for starting up list as well. So, pardon me. We just want to thank him. He's tremendous, isn't he?
Girl, every time I talk to him, I come away with something new. It's kind of crazy, but like I've met only a few people who I feel like I'm always continuously being educated by and learning something, and so he's one of those guys who I just love. He's like a walking wealth of knowledge. Oh, to throw back an encyclopedia.
Yeah, there you go. And I want to give a shout out to Stacy Todman over at Rise. She's the one who introduced us to him. And then we returned that favor by introducing him to other people ourselves. It's all about women supporting women. So real quick, before we end today's session, grab a ticket to Biz Life Con. We are so excited. It is on sale. We're also going to put that link out there to you. It is a virtual event, but we're trying to make it as best we could in this short amount of time, a really great virtual conference. We're trying to do everything we can to make it creative like we do with our real life conferences. So, we like to start the day out with mimosas. We will be providing you and a donut wall. We're going to provide you with a recipe for your morning breakfast and a recipe for your mocktail or cocktail for the morning. And on top of that, you'll be enjoying some comedy, some humor by Debbie Shear. So she's going to kick us off, right? With
3 Biz Life Cons and running now. It'll be her 3rd one. So we are just excited.
Third one. And Lupe, you were able to get Barbara Waxman. Tell them real quick about Barbara.
Yes, shout out to my amazing mentor girlfriend, Noni Allwood, out in San Francisco. She introduced me to Barbara Waxman, who is an amazing woman, a gerontologist. She's also studied middle essence and the stage of life that, ladies, we're all in. You've heard us use that term before. She is going to be opening up our conference, sharing some insights about her studies, research she's found, but also educate you on the fact that in this case, as a middle essence woman, age is on your side. You may not think so, but it is, and there's a lot of value and advantage that you have owning your age. So tune in, because she's going to set us on the right path to getting the most out of Biz Life Con.
Absolutely. And by the way, the topic is swiveling. It's the second act swivel. We really we're trying to disband the word pivots. And so by that, thanks to Bonnie Nash over a social that we had with our insiders, we came up with the term swivel. So really, it is going to be a high impact virtual gathering of women over 40 and 50, although we're not ages. So if you'd like to join us at any age, or if you're male, you're welcome to. All the content will be touching on business, career, so starting up or business ownership, career, and lifestyle. And so we have a lot going on. We even have a Instagrammer out of Columbus, Ohio, who has over 90,000 fans to her crochet page. Yeah. And she's pretty spectacular. So Tony will be here to talk to us about growing from followers to fans and growing those numbers on Instagram. Us women over 40 and 50, we love our Instagram just as much as our Facebook. So it's going to be exciting. We've got 3 packages out there. The passes start at only $54. If you want a graphic tee, it's only $75. And then we have the Biz Life Con bundle where you can actually join the membership. So we look forward to seeing you there. And then Lupe, I'll let you end it with where we're going to be with Journal Assembly in a few weeks and a call to action.
General Assembly has been a really great partner of ours and continues to help us spread our message. So we have been invited to sit and do a session with them on June 25th. So mark your calendars. We'll put the link to join us so that you can register to attend the free Zoom event. But basically, we are talking about how to swivel your way and get a job and how to kind of move your career forward after 40. And so they've been doing an amazing job of promoting. We've got over 100 people nationwide tuning in for this. So if you get the chance, we'll, like I said, post the details in the Morning Cup stream here. But tune in and be part of the conversation with us.
Yes.
And also, ladies, it goes without saying, we have posted in the past 2 blogs that we're writing. We're always incorporating these types of news nuggets into our newsletter. So if you want to stay abreast of, business, career, and life topics, all kind of curated and specifically tailored to you, please join our newsletter. You can do that by going to SecondActWomen.com. And thank you so much for just showing up. All the participation we had today. You guys continue to impress, and we're just humbled by your support.
All right, are we going to try to nail it this time, Lupe? Are we going to try to nail our ending?
So let's just read it all the way through. No stopping. Here we go.
Okay, ready? You can't fill someone else's cup if yours is half full. And of course, my business partner just froze. So we want to thank you for coming here today. Maybe it was my system that froze, but thank you for joining us. Next week is going to be a panel. We're talking with Megan Jo, Kristen Jansen, and some others who are hiring managers. We're going to be talking about getting hired in corporate America post-COVID, because listen, it's back to business, people. So we will see you all next week, probably before that, you know us. And many blessings, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.